What is going on, guys? What's going on? Hope you're all good, having a nice evening and everything. We've got a lot to talk about today, of course. Joined with the amazing Ben Jacobs. How you doing, Ben? You good?
I'm good. Always a pleasure. How are you?
Oh, yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Thought we'd just have a little talk about this extremely busy transfer window for Wolves and all of the linked players and everything. I thought it'd be nice to catch up a little bit after that successful last time we joined together and all the conversations had then as well. So thought it was a good time to catch up.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
Wolves are really busy, so looking forward to getting started.
exactly, yeah. So we're not gonna mess around too much here, guys. Just before we get started though, like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all the things that you need to do. There's 197 of you already here, and I'm gonna go through your comments as we go. But of course, there is a lot to get into, so we are just gonna go straight into it. First of all, the last time we talked, we of course signed a few players, so we were already busy in the transfer window, and that was a surprise to everybody involved, including ourselves. That sort of gave us a few players, which was fantastic, and then obviously the biggest one was with Jorgen Strand Larsen. Which we didn't talk about on the podcast. That kind of came out of nowhere. And Wolves obviously have their nine, which is fantastic. It's something we've been after basically since we signed Raul and his sort of career came to an end with Wolves. So this is a massive signing for us, Jurgen Strand Larsen. So after that, we thought, okay, well, we spent a bit of money there, so there are going to have to be some players that sort of leave Wolves as well. And Max Kilman left
Mm.
for West Ham, which wasn't a massive surprise. It was kind of linked quite a bit, wasn't he, with the club and everything. So, but yeah, my first question basically, what are your thoughts about Jurgen Strand Larsen and Kilman's departure?
Yeah, Larsen's a very intelligent signing. So the information that I have is it's a loan with an option that very easily becomes an obligation. So he can be considered a permanent Wolves player, but the finances will go on 2024, 2025, not 2023, 2024, as far as the books are concerned. And that's also because, and you can do this, close them early. Wolves ended their financial year in May. So all the sort of furore around the financial deadline was actually not of concern to Wolves because they closed their financial year at the end of May, not at the end of June. And it's 3 million for the loan, and then it's 27 million, and it's triggered by only a handful of appearances, which is why Wolves, from a budgetary point of view and a practical football perspective, consider the player permanent. And he's got a deft first touch. He is quite versatile, and he's very intelligent in his movement off the ball. So it's finally perhaps that focal point, that striker that Wolves have been looking for. We know they considered Emmanuel Broja as well, but the cost of that was far too high. And seemingly they've ended their pursuit in Che Adams. I think you can never rule out opportunistic business to add a bit more depth. And because Adams, if he doesn't sign at Southampton for somebody as a free agent, that kind of deal later in the window, not specifically Adams, could always be a realistic possibility. But they've got the striker that they want. So it ticks the box and it allows them to move on, likely with a centre-back because of Kilman's departure. Now, with Kilman, the fee received kind of covers the business to date, pretty much like for like, if you factor in that 27 million euros. And this is why I
Yeah.
think that Wolves won't necessarily spend 20, 30 million pounds on a defender, and they won't use the fee of its entirety on Kilman to necessarily spend too big in the market. But if the right opportunity comes along, there is a little bit of leeway, especially because they've now entered into a new financial year. With Kilman, I think it might divide the Wolves fan base. Those listening will know far better than me. So I certainly wouldn't want to put words in the mouth of fans that watch Wolves every single week. But my view on Kilman is that he had a better season 2 seasons ago than last season. And I think
Yes.
the player wanted to play under Julian Lopetegui, maybe feels that that project and also living in London could give him the lifestyle he wants and potentially even European football. a bit quicker than Wolves. I don't think there's actually that much between Wolves and West Ham. They're both the kind of teams that good season, you start talking about Europa League, bad season, you're looking over your shoulder, and they oscillate between could finish sixth or yikes, it might be 17th or worse. And I think it would be disrespectful to say that leaving Wolves to West Ham is a bigger move, but financially it's a bigger package. And he obviously just likes the idea of playing under Lopetegui. And if you look at it from Wolves' perspective, phenomenal bit of business, not only because it's pure profit on the books, but they paid 4K, you sell that player for 40 million, brilliant for both Maidenhead and Wolves. So in the end, I just think the offer was too good to turn down. And now we wait and see whether Wolves feel they need another centre-back or if they're happy with what they've got.
Yeah, I think that really nicely puts me into where I sort of want to go next, which is, by the way, everything you said was perfect. Like the whole feeling around Kilman is very much like that couple of seasons where he was, you know, in that race to be the next England centre back. Very much then became a little bit more seeing his weaknesses more than his strengths kind of develop. And I think it's a good time to sell Kilman and him. I think it sort of works for everybody, in my opinion. You know, like you said, it's a different club and there's a different feel around that club, and it might be exactly what he needs now to sort of get his career on the go. And we obviously needed some money to come in to help us in other areas. So I think yeah, very, very astute business really from Wolves. So we've said obviously Kilman's gone. So my next question is, who do you think at the moment who we're linked with are decent replacements for Kilman?
Yeah, I think when we're talking about replacements, Wolves sources, certainly as far as my reporting is concerned, are not speaking about diving in immediately, because if the right opportunity doesn't come, they're actually okay. And maybe that left-sided centre-back is useful, but I also think that there's no problem playing two right-sided centre-backs or mixing and matching from what Wolves have already got. And remember, Mosquera's returning, and even though we heard a lot of rumours about potentially Villarreal wanting to make that move permanent, or other suitors in La Liga in particular, Wolves sources for me have always said really clearly and categorically that they rate the 23-year-old Colombian. So he could well break into the team next season, and ultimately that's one more. If they do move, I think there's the most substance behind David Carmo, and that offers something a bit different to Kilman. He's one of those giant modern centre backs, but is also very confident on the ball too. So that could be one possibility. And then, as I broke in a piece that I did for Give Me Sport, Josip Totalo is another name that could become available this summer. And the only kind of downside there is it hasn't worked out for him to date at Ajax. And that presents an opportunity where he might be available in the market for as little as 15 million. I think the maximum price would be 20 million, but it wouldn't surprise me if suitors start between the 12 and 15 million euros mark. Really accomplished player, top kind of fit with the Wolves system, but by all accounts, and I think he might have even said this on record, he's homesick at Ajax. So it's about whether or not he goes somewhere that's right for him as a human being and his family and the culture and the language and the climate and all of these other things, or whether he's prepared to make a big step up in the spotlight of the Premier League. And, you know, Ajax to Wolves might sound to some like it's a step down, but I think that's disrespectful to Wolves and the wider Premier League, because the wages, package, the ambition, all of that moving to Wolves could allow him to get game time and make a step up. So it's a consideration, and they like the profile, but they know that there's some personal complications that maybe make it a little bit more difficult than some of their other targets. And I think the last thing I would say is just they're not absolutely hell-bent on left-sided only, but I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Mosquera returns and he's right-sided, isn't he?
Yeah.
So you've
That's
got
correct.
extra, in inverted commas, extra, because he was loaned and comes back on the right side. So I still think
Mm.
if they strengthen, they would add a left-sided centre-back. But
Mm.
they may feel that they've got enough within the squad. So this isn't about Kilman out who's coming in, or Kilman out where are we spending the 40 million. It's actually an aim now to settle the squad, because from what
Mm.
I'm told, Gary O'Neill is quite content now with what he's got.
Yeah. And the other thing, obviously, the fact that it's come out recently, the fact that, you know, Gary O'Neill kind of wants to go for a back four, so you kind of eliminate a centre back in the back three anyway. If we've been playing with a back five for quite a while now under Gary O'Neill, and if he wants to go to a back four, and you've got Yersin Mosquera coming in, you know, you basically replace him with Kilman, and you've got either Totti or Yersin, what's his name, Santi Bueno, as a sort of centre back with you as well. And I don't know if I feel too confident in that. Still feel like getting someone in who's a recognised centre back just to help out if things don't go so well. Do you know what I mean? I just think that laying all of your cards on one player is particularly kind of a risk, and we've done that for a while now, Wolves, in other areas of the pitch. So hopefully,
you know what I would do, and
yeah,
it's like totally far-fetched, and
yeah,
to be very, very clear, because we all know how some aggregators work. I'm not
yeah,
making these links, but if I was
yeah,
Wolves, I would enter the race for someone like Max Hummels, who
yeah,
is 35. He's a squad player. He's not going to expect to play every week. That kind of profile. I'm not saying they're quite 35. It might be someone more in their early 30s, but cheap. So free transfer or a few million. So you still make the pure profit off Kilman. You've got another player in there, but the right character, not necessarily someone that thinks they're going to start every week, but someone that's going to be very positive and still very capable of contributing without necessarily being itching to play week in, week out. Now, Hummels isn't on Wolves' radar. I know a few Italian clubs and Saudi and MLS have looked at him in the past, but it's that kind of profile
similar
that
to
I think Wolves
similar to
need.
Dawson, isn't it? Like, we got Dawson for quite cheap, and he was just someone who's got a lot of experience behind him. I feel like you're right. To be fair, I feel like getting a player of experience, into the latter years of his career, I think that is probably a good shout, because you can just get that little solid replacement just for the time being. Do you know what I mean? I think you're right. I think if you sort of risk not going for players with experience, it is a risk, and do you really need to make that risk? I think that's the issue. Cool. So we've talked about obviously our defensive situation. We've obviously got a load of players at the moment that are being looked at. So like you got your Neto, Ait Nouri, Joe Gomez, even Dan Bentley's being looked at the moment. Any new any new Wolves players, or is it just very much those ones? And if it is those ones, are there any new links that you could tell us about?
Yeah, I think Wolves are quite calm about the situation with all of the potential outgoings. The big one is Pedro Neto, purely because he's in a slightly different situation to, let's say, João Gomez, who's not been at the football club for long. And Wolves don't view themselves as a selling club by any stretch of the imagination, but they're appreciative that certain players, if Wolves don't get, for example, European football, are going to want to go and play Europa League or Champions League. And if they're good enough for the right price, Wolves won't necessarily stand in their way, at least until they get to the point where maybe, like a Brighton and like Wolves almost did a few seasons back, they have Champions League football or some kind of European football. And
Yeah.
with that carrot, then you can be a bit more bullish with players, because if they say all along they want to make a step up, there's no real step up, is there, from being at a Premier League club that is finishing in the top half of the table and competing in European football? But because he's been at the club, I think, since 2019, if the right offer comes there, they'll treat it in the same way, I'm told, as they did with the departure of Ruben Neves to Al Hilal and also Jota to Liverpool. But it's not this 45 million number that you might see reported. I'm told it's a minimum of 60 million pounds. Maybe there's a little bit of flexibility. Sources had indicated Kilman was 45 million, he went for 40. But I think 60 million is a minimum at the moment. So it'd be quite surprising if 55 million or under was accepted, unless there was an incredible payment scheme and a large amount of that, therefore, up front. So the plan is to keep Pedro Neto, but I think it will be a surprise if between now and the end of the window, Spurs don't make some kind of approach to test the waters there. And then we'll wait and see, because that's not a scenario with a club that have got Champions League football. Whereas with PSG, it's just an internal discussion. And at the moment, they're prioritising other targets and a variety of different positions, such as João Neves at Benfica, who's very expensive, potentially Victor Osimhen. We still can't rule out Julian Alvarez. So PSG are going to be spending their Mbappe money, if we're going to call it that, or their savings for Mbappe on other players at this stage. But I think that there is a concrete possibility that Spurs come calling. With João Neves, he's been on Manchester United's list for quite some time, and you've got Liverpool, a slightly newer suitor, who may choose to strengthen in that position, although centre-back, left-sided and wide, forward or winger, their two most pressing concerns at this stage. But maybe they'll circle back to another midfielder, especially if you consider the age of Endo, for example. But that is the kind of deal that Wolves would be in a stronger position from a football perspective and financially to rebuff. So they're quite calm about the situation. And you're looking again at well in excess of £60 million in what is an inflated market. And if other central midfielders, regardless of whether they're like for like, are going for that kind of number, Manuel Ugarte could leave PSG for that number. João Neves, if he goes in the release clause, is paid. It's twice the amount of that. It's 120 million euros. You've potentially got historical fees, even though it didn't really work out for Calvin Phillips when he left Leeds. You've got Archie Gray, who left Leeds in this window for 40 million. So Wolves are well within their rights to be asking for a pretty astronomical number for João Gomez and point to the fact that he's not been at the club for very long. So it would be quite surprising if anyone had any success. But you can never say never when you've got an inflated market and you've got demand. So we wait and see whether Liverpool formalise that interest. But there's a few Premier League suitors circling around João Gomez at this stage. Ryan Aït-Nouri, we hear constant rumours with Liverpool, and they may want to strengthen in that area, but there's nothing advanced or concrete at this stage. I think the player may be open to a move away if he gets a box office type proposal with Champions League football, but not one that we're looking at the moment at Wolves replacing. And even though we've heard links in the past, for example, with clubs like Chelsea and also Manchester United, those two, I'm told, are looking at someone like Milos Kirkos at Bournemouth at the moment, and he'll be available in the market if Bournemouth are persuaded to sell, and it is still a big if, for 35 to 40 million pounds. So all quiet on the Aït-Nouri front, even though there's a growing sense of rumours about Liverpool maybe making a move. Let's wait and see, but nothing really to add there at this stage. So I think it's just about Wolves settling their squad at this stage and hanging on to all of their stars. And if one was to go, I think Neto would be the most likely, but that's comparative to the others. And I still think that there is a possibility, if Spurs don't come calling, that we might see all of them start the season at Wolves. I know the start of the season is not the end of the window, so that's just one thing to make very clear. But I think Gary O'Neill's quite calm about the situation. I think the bulk of the legwork in the window of Wolves has been done. He's got his striker. If the star names stay, or the majority of them, then Wolves will be very happy that they're in a strong position to make a push for a top half finish or better this season.
Nice. All right. That's awesome. Sorry, my camera just randomly zoomed in. Bear with me.
Yeah, I saw. I thought you were zooming in at the match to
I don't know what's going on there.
By the point I was making about Wolves being quite calm.
There we go. Back to normal. Anyway, so yes, we talked about obviously those players. Any Saudi interest at the moment for any players? I know you are Mr. Saudi man when it comes to whatever you said last time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the Saudi football correspondent, or the Middle East football correspondent, technically. But I'm not Saudi at the moment for TalkSport, so I do go over there regularly. And I think from Wolves' perspective, the player that we might see some Saudi interest is again Neto. And it would be interesting to see whether he follows the Ruben Neves path because he gets a big money offer. As it stands at the moment, they've had a lot of their meetings in London, the central Saudi deal makers, and Wolves haven't had an approach for Pedro Neto. So if Saudi do come calling, it will be a little bit later. And the Saudi window doesn't open, by the way, until July the 17th either. More broadly, with Wolves' interest in players, it was more around Broja, who Wolves have called on because of price, and Larsen's arrived, and Che Adams, who has a Saudi offer on the table from Al Shabab. So you were looking more at Saudi to perhaps gate crash a Wolves target rather than necessarily to dip into the Wolves squad to try and sign some players. So relatively calm on that front at the moment. More broadly, for anyone that's interested, it's the same old targets. Rafa Varane's in advanced talks with Como, but Saudi like him. Casemiro, Edison, possibly Alisson, but I think he'll stay at Liverpool. And then, of course, Kevin De Bruyne and Mo Salah from the Premier League, Salah 2025. And we wait and see whether there's a big place for Kevin De Bruyne or whether Al Hilal and Central Saudi deal makers wait for him. So the Saudi window will ramp up. But I think from Wolves' perspective, they can be relatively calm about the situation, that if they are to lose a Saudi player, it will be one that perhaps they want out the door, rather than like a Fulham Mitrovic situation 12 months ago, where they're like, yikes, the Saudis are coming for all of these players that actually we'd like to keep at the club. I've mentioned before regarding Saudi, so I am repeating old ground here. Pablo Sarabia was a concrete target as far as Al Ittifaq were concerned, but they went for Damari Gray instead. Damari Gray might leave, and there is some Premier League formative interest in him, and also from Galatasaray. And if he goes for somewhere in the region of 5 to 8 million euros, they may be looking for a replacement, and Sarabia might come into their thinking again. But it was a sort of odd one with Sarabia, because when the Saudi interest was first there, it felt like he was just definitely leaving Wolves at that point, and he wasn't getting any game time, and he seemed like he was surplus to requirements. And this was, of course, off the back of 2022, 2023, where I can't think of too many Premier League games that he started. But then if you look at the stats from last season, he was involved in virtually all of the Premier League games. It was much more of an important player for Wolves, either as a starter or off the bench. So maybe at this point, the Wolves' perspective is different. When Al Ittifaq made the inquiry, they had quite firm confidence that if the player agreed, Wolves would have no issue. Now it might be a different story.
Cool. I'm going to let you get off in just a second. I have one more question for you. What do you think about the captain situation at Wolves? Who would you, in your opinion, because I'm going to ask the chat in a minute before I get your opinion as well. Who do you think could make a good captain for Wolves now?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think Wolves fans in the chat will have a far more informed opinion than me. So I never like to tell football fans that watch their team every week who their captain or vice captain should be, because my opinion is completely inferior to yours. So I'm going to look at it kind of very academically, I suppose. And you either give it to a real leader and maybe one of the players that could depart, that you think with the captaincy might stay, but that's quite clearly not João Gomez, for example. No. And I'm not that convinced that Pedro Neto would make a strong Wolves captain. So that's my theory number one. You give it to a player you want to keep in the hope that it sort of galvanizes them to stay. So then Brian Aït-Nouri potentially, but that would be about him doing his talking on the field rather than
which he's barely talked anything. I've literally heard him like a few interviews. So everyone's saying Cunha or Lamina.
Yeah, I mean, there's a logic of giving it to a sort of Doherty type player that is liked in the dressing room, but are they going to start every week? And that's another consideration, especially when we know that the defense is moving to a back line. So it'll be interesting to see whether that's the sort of logic. And obviously with Doherty fullback, wing back, the back line might not change things as significantly. So that's one sort of logic, I suppose. And again, I think he probably played 30 odd Premier League games last season. So you might have him on the field enough to be a leader. And then, as you say, I think Lamina would be a very good captain. So that's perhaps one option that they might explore. But I don't think there's an obvious answer. Like somebody like Craig Dawson would be a really good captain, but he won't play enough. So can you make a club captain like him? So then you've got your main captain to be the big voice and the influence and the dressing room, but then you still need more of an on-field captain for the games that he doesn't play in. So it's probably a tough conundrum. I don't think Cunha is a bad shout, but I don't know enough about his vocal qualities or his languages abilities, because we're not just talking about someone that can be like English Portuguese. When you look at the Wolves squad, even though there's obviously a big Portuguese presence, you've got French players, you've got potential new signings that come in with different cultures that when they first come, you might want the captain to put an arm around them. So I think I'm going to leave it, as much as I'm sitting on the fence, for the
Yeah,
fan consensus in the chat.
that's
And
fine. That's
I
fine.
honestly don't think I know the answer to that question.
That's nice. That's good. I mean, we're probably in the same conundrum, to be fair, but I think
Yeah, I mean, look, if Dawson started every week, I think Dawson would be a
yeah,
great,
100%. Yeah,
but
yeah.
he's not going to start every week, in
No,
my
no, no,
opinion. And
no.
therefore, maybe he's club captain, and then maybe you do say Lamina, who was vice captain, though, last season.
Sarabia.
So that's quite an interesting one as well. I mean, technically first in line, but for the right offer, you never know. You could be off to Saudi.
Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna let you get off because you've got a load to do, mate. So good luck with the rest of your night and whatever you get up to. Gonna be a busy one. We'll probably catch up again towards the end of the window if that's cool. And hopefully there's I don't want 8 Nori to go. That's the one thing, Ben. Stop him from coming for 8 Nori, mate, because I don't want him to leave.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Dan. Keep up the good work. Good to engage with
Nice
many
one,
of you
mate.
in the chat. I look forward to hearing what the consensus is on the captain votes, because I might have to steal that and say, well, Wolves fans tell me that they'd like this player as captain. It's always good to get that fan perspective. But have a good evening,
Yeah.
everyone. Enjoy
All right,
the
lovely.
Euro semi-final, and good luck to England tomorrow.
Come on, mate. Come on. Hopefully.
Take
See you
care. All
later,
the
man.
best.
See you later. Bye-bye. Right, guys. So, so obviously we know that David Carmo is someone that Ben said that would be a good option, and that is someone that me and Matt said would be a good option as well. Thomas Bielan now is looking like it's probably not going to happen. So, like he said, though, there's not a rush at the moment to get a centre back, which is nice, because I think that Wolves have basically done that major business, which was getting that 9. The one thing that Wolves have wanted to do for such a long time is get that number 9. And the idea that we've already done that so early in the window is fantastic for Wolves. Now we can start to look at those other areas and think, right, Kilman's gone. Let's see what other players can bring us in pre-season. And you know what? If players don't really step up, or I've just seen the interview with Yerson Mosquera, and he seemed a little bit on the fence about joining back with Wolves again. And to be fair, that interview did happen just after Real Madrid drew to them 4-4, and in the same season where they beat Barcelona. So he's probably just on cloud 9 being at a club that's managing these kind of results, isn't he? Now, obviously, Kilman's gone, Dawson's injured. He's probably looking at Wolves thinking a little bit more of the project of, I'm going to get a load of time in the Premier League. So it's an interesting one, I think, with Yerson Mosquera. I honestly think that he always, for me, looked like a good player for me. When I remember seeing him on his debut against Spurs, and I just thought that he could get about really, really well. Scored some goals in pre-season as well, if you remember. So he's got a little bit about his game that I think Wolves will really benefit from. I'm just going to go through your guys' comments because obviously you've been really busy talking. I'm going to stay here for a little bit longer as well as we talk. I didn't think Ben was going to give us too much today, but I thought we'd get a little catch up considering all the links that we've got at the moment. But I think the main thing that you need to take away from it is that Wolves aren't in any rush to get a centre back. So unfortunately, no new things had dropped really, other than the fact that he said he'd recommend David Carmo over the people that we've been linked to. And I do know that obviously we've not had conversation with the player at all, but he's very much in in the lineup for that sort of conversation to be had in the future. Is it true we were after Murillo? Not heard anything about Murillo, so I can't say personally. I already had a conversation with Ben about players linked to Wolves, and that wasn't one that came up. So gonna say no for now, but you never know what happens, especially with our number 9 Jurgen Strand Larsen coming out of absolutely nowhere, pretty much. I didn't hear about him at all, and it just happened. So that was amazing, really. It doesn't sound like any more signings, says Glyn. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. You know, the window's really very much still, you know, ajar, if you will. You know, it's not like we're a chunk into the season already, or we're into the pre-season or anything. You know, Wolves have very much done the big business, which was getting a number 9. I actually think that'll make Gary stay as well. Gary's thing for the longest time, every time he came into the press box, was, you know, I don't know, we really need a number 9. You know, he tried so many different players in that position to sort of fill the void. So I wouldn't say there's no more signings, Glyn, but I will say it will be quiet for some time due to the fact that there's a lot of players that Gary will look at in pre-season for sure. I know he's already very keen on Yerson Mosquera, so and there's some players back from loan as well that we're probably forgetting about. Some players that have come back from loan that might have a different sort of feeling around Gary, and that's the difference. Like, a player might come back that didn't get on with Bruno Lage, didn't get on with Lopetegui, didn't get on with Nuno or whatever. You know, you just don't know. There are going to be times where Wolves will very much find players that get on with certain managers. So I wouldn't be shocked if these players that are coming back from loan end up doing the business. I'm going to make this nice and big. There we go. Perfect. Right. What else can we say? Are you related to Safegate in any way? I don't know if that was a question to Ben or not. Lots of good evenings. I hope everyone's good and everything as well. Nice to see England winning the other day. If you didn't, we did do a watch along with the Wolfpack, and that was a lot of fun. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend watching that, because that was something, wasn't it, for the people that were there. Andrew says, I'm seeing Wolves linked with a lot of defenders just recently. Yeah, I mean, we talked to Ben about, obviously, the links towards different defenders and everything, but it's all just links, isn't it? Like he says, we're not rushing to get a centre-back anytime soon. So the main thing is we are linked to defenders, because I think if we get into after pre-season and then we're looking over our shoulder thinking, oh, bloody hell, we're going to be in some trouble here if we don't get any defenders in. It's nice to know that we were already in the market and looking. Do you know what I mean? That's a massive plus, just in case the other plans don't work out. Do you think Neto will go this summer, Jamie? I think as Ben just said, I think the one player that is likely out of all of them is probably Pedro Neto, just because of the fact he's been at Wolves a long time. He probably wants Champions League football now. He probably deserves Champions League football as well, to be honest. He's been a mainstay for Wolves for quite some time. Got us through some hard times and everything. I would say he's probably our best player during COVID as well. Literally kept us in the league at that point, him and Neves. So I feel like if he was to go, we got a good fee for him, I think everyone would be, fairly, disappointed. But I think we'd all be really happy for the player, wouldn't we? So I think Neto might go out of all the players that that we've had heavily links from. So Aït-Nouri, Joe Gomez. I can say as well, Dan Bentley at the moment looks like he probably will stay. A lot of things coming out now saying that apparently um, he does. He'd obviously like to move out and do something new. But I think the thing is with Dan Bentley is that at Wolves he's got um, a very high leadership role within the dressing room, and I think that might be something that is really keeping him around. I think his voice in the dressing room is super important, and I think he actually does want that sort of career in the future. So I think it's going to benefit Dan Bentley staying, in my opinion. Anyway, I don't really think he'd do much at Arsenal. You know, he probably would be a voice at Arsenal, but he can't guarantee that, can he? So I think Dan Bentley will probably stay. Um, so yeah, I think we found a very good striker, says Andrew. One who can hopefully fill the void we've been missing. Well, we've already done extensive work already looking at Jorgen Strand Larsen. We've already done massive work that you can check out on the channel, looking at him, looking at his stats, talking to people that he knows personally, seeing him in the flesh, you know. And everything adds up to a good player. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But I would be very surprised if it's not a good signing for Wolves, because it's, as you say, it's everything we've been missing and more. If we get 60 million to 70 million for Neto, he'll go. I think 60 million would probably be enough, if I'm honest, just because of his injury record. I think if that injury record wasn't there, I think that Neto would actually probably, I think Neto would go for a lot more, basically. So 60 million, I think you would take now, but I honestly think that another thing we've got to take into consideration is the problem with Neto has been we haven't had players that can fill that space should we get any injuries. So we've had to overplay him, which has absolutely destroyed his fitness, and we've not really seen Neto with a decent fitness to sort of warm him into the Premier League again. He just got thrown into it again, and no fault of anybody's, but yeah, it's going to be one of them where it will be interesting because we've got Rodrigo Gomez now. I'm trying to think of all the players that have come back from loan that would probably help there as well. Oh God, I can't think of anyone at the moment, but I know I wrote down the other day that that there's obviously a few players that could step in for Neto. We've seen Aït-Nouri go further forward as well. So I think that if we make sure that we've got someone to to help out should Neto get injured, or even just to help out so we can warm Neto back into the Premier League, I don't see a problem with him staying. Just don't want to overuse him as much as we did. And I think if we do that and we get one more good season out of him with no injuries, I think his money would increase substantially. So it might be a risk doing it, but it could be a good risk as well. I mean, we've seen him play for Portugal. I think he's been fantastic. So we'll see. We will see. Are we looking at a backup for? Sorry, are we looking at a backup for a 9, maybe on a fee, a free or a low fee? I think that actually, I was talking to Ben about this earlier, and I don't actually think that it would be that shocking to see that happen. I don't think it would be that shocking to see us get like, you know, an old Premier League mainstay player that would just come in for free. A little bit like, a little bit what's happened in the past with players that have come back and just sort of helped us just to keep bodies, basically. Because we don't want to throw all our eggs in one basket with Jorgen Strand Larsen and then him get a bloody injury like Sasha Klajdzic. So I know that Leon Chouameni has been getting some good training. I know Gary really likes him. Is very, very impressed with him. And he can play as a 9. So preseason will be very interesting for those kind of players. See if they can sort of fill that sort of void that we've had problems with in the past. You know, we've always been that team with like one mainstay striker, and then you look at the bench and go, well, they can play there, but it's not their particular role. So maybe Leon Chirome is that guy that can do that for us, or Nathan Fraser, should he sort of find a little bit more in his locker. 65 to 70 million for Neto. PSG interested. If PSG are interested in Neto, which we've seen quite a lot of links about, I think that if we said no to 60 million, I could see him coming back for a little bit more. With some of their players leaving as well, it would make complete sense, because PSG have a lot of money, and they've got some players leaving in key areas. So I could see him being pretty happy with Neto. Thanks for subscribing, guys, and liking. I really appreciate that. I'm just going down your comments. It was an interesting one. Says Andrew. Says Danny Bath is training with the squad again. So Danny Bath is training with the squad. A lot of people were saying, or there was a lot of links around him saying that he was going to Solihull Malls, or at least there was interest in him there. That's completely false. So very much just sort of keeping him fit, helping him out because of him being a bit of a legend for us in the Championship. Don't see him obviously staying with Wolves or anything, but it'd be nice to sort of get him back to shape and find him a team that that he can sort of flourish in. So yeah, he is training with Worst Squad, but there's no links to him staying at Wolves, and there's absolutely no links to him going to Solihull Moors. So I don't know where that came from. Mascara coming back, says Stu. Well, yeah, we just talked about Mascara. I think it's interesting, that video coming out about Mascara today. You can sort of think, oh, you know what? Actually, that's a little bit of a coincidence, us needing a centre back, talking about Mascara, and then obviously the Wolves media team releasing that video. I know that video was shot ages ago, because we saw some images of Gemma talking to Mascara way into the season, so we already knew that happened. And the thing is, I'd take everything he said in that interview with a pinch of salt, because 1, we had Kilman then, 2, Craig Dawson wasn't injured, Totti Gomez was playing for Portugal, so he had literally, and Santi Bueno wasn't even in the team yet, and then Santi Bueno came in while he was on loan. So I mean, if I was Mascara, I'd be thinking, well, I'm never getting into a Wolves shirt. So it made complete sense as to why that was a little bit of a standoffish interview. I think if he made that interview now, I think he'd be like, okay, I've talked to Gary and he very much wants me in a back 4. Let's do this thing. That's honestly what I'd think that he'd say. And she says Kilman is not a captain. We talked about the fact that Kilman's captain roles weren't the best. Sativa says he cost us some points last season. True. And probably some hairline as well from me. Cost me some hairline for sure. Bloody hell. He was a very frustrating player to watch last season, wasn't he? Wolf supporter from the USA. Yes, Seth. How you doing, mate? Welcome. Are you watching Wolves in the preseason in America? And actually, is anyone watching Wolves preseason at all? Because there's some interesting games there, isn't there? Look at the kids we have already, like Nigel Longwich. So that's a player that I think Wolves are starting to sleep on a little bit. Well, at least us as fans are. It's interesting that he's back in pre-season, and I'm pretty sure he's travelling with Wolves as well. I've always rated him, to be honest. I thought he's a good player in the air, very commanding presence, decent in a back four. I don't know what he's like with his footwork. Every time I've looked at his stuff when he's been on loan, he's looked pretty comfortable with the ball, but I've not seen him under pressure too much. So it'll be interesting to see players like him in pre-season and sort of evaluate on whether we even need even need help in that department. I think Yersa Mosquera and Nigel coming back would be quite interesting. Neil says, any word on defenders? So the only thing we obviously already know of the links with Wolves are Josip Sotalo, Thomas Beelin, David Como, and Elvedi as well. But all of those are either... They've all got different circumstances surrounding them that makes it harder for them to join Wolves. The only one that's slightly teetered into our favour at the moment is David Carmo, just because of the fact that he wouldn't be extremely expensive and it wouldn't be the worst signing either. Like, it wouldn't be like an upgrade on Kilman, but it would be more of like a like-for-like kind of player, depending on how he deals with the Premier League, of course. I obviously know a lot of these questions would have been for Ben as well, because I'm going through the comments and there's probably a load still coming out, but I'm going through, I'm doing my best. Have you heard anything of outside investment into the club? So in outside investment into the club, absolutely no investment from other investors into Fosun. However, Fosun are investing into areas which the trust had issues with, which is well, the one thing they're not investing in, and I'm not really happy about it, is the women's team. They're not investing into them at all, and it's very much a grey area at the moment. So something to look at the moment is that's definitely an area that needs to improve. I know that they're starting to paint, which is nice. I know that there's plans for them to do something with some of the stands that are looking a bit tired. I know there's interest in, obviously, players that Gary likes and is interested in, but that 9 was the target for Wolves this season, and they've already achieved it. So everything else after this is a little bit of a bonus. Kilman leaving, I don't think the club wanted him to leave, but everything I think about with Kilman leaving is positive, in my opinion. Like, we need money to come into the club. There's a lot of money through him. The money you invest into that player as well now would have gone down catastrophically next season, because he'd have turned 28, and basically his money would have just plummeted, depending on how he would have performed, of course. But I don't know. I just feel like Kilman, it was just a good thing for all parties. Steve thinks Neto will stay. I'm still going through. I'm still getting there. I'm getting there. Can't see Wolves selling Joe Gomez this summer. It's interesting how much Ben talked about Joe Gomez, isn't it? There's still obviously a lot of love for him, but there's nothing concrete at the moment. So, and the one thing that I would take from this is that Ben knows a lot about the Saudis, and if there's no interest at the moment for Wolves players, that is like a load of stress off my mind, because I thought they were going to come in for Neto, Ait-Nouri or Joe Gomez for sure. I think Neto wouldn't be too bothered about so much, because obviously we already talked about him. But Ait-Nouri, I really don't want him to leave, man. That's the one player for me that I think we'd struggle to replace. Don't think we'd be able to. Release clause on Ait-Nouri, 55 million for add-ons, 5 million. Yeah, interesting putting add-ons on Ait-Nouri if we sold him. We'd have to assess it, wouldn't we? I think Ait-Nouri being sold is probably the one that hurts us the most, in my opinion. If Yosin wants to come, I'd have him, but don't think the player wants to be here. Like I said earlier about that, though, if you look at his interview, it was an old interview based upon things that were going on at the time, based on players that were already in his position. He had a lot of competition, and he doesn't have that anymore. And if he wants minutes, he'd get it under Gary O'Neill now. So I think it'll be interesting to see if he makes any of the preseason games, and if he does make the preseason games, then we need to look at him as a serious centre back for us going forward. Because from everything I've seen in Villarreal, he was unreal. So yeah. Did I say Villarreal? Yeah, I thought I don't know. I always get Valencia and Villarreal confused, so I have to often think about what I actually said. But yeah, interview released today. Yeah, I talked about the interview. So yeah, we're talking about captains, weren't we? So a lot of people are saying Cunha or Lamina. Lamina or Cunha. Lamina. João Gomez. Interesting. Captain Lamina. Lamina or Cunha. Lamina. Dawson, if he started every week, yeah, 100%. Dawson didn't get that injury. I think he'd definitely get captain for sure. Lamina. Cunha, yeah, this is something I want to talk about actually, Rory, and this is interesting. From the videos I watched, Cunha looks like he'd be a great captain. 100%, mate. The way he's loved in that club, the way he literally just embraces everybody, gets everybody interested and gets everyone happy, and seems to be that bright spark. I think if you've got that in the changing room, then to me, sometimes that weighs even more than having someone who's just very shouty. I think Connor Cody had a little bit of both. He had a little bit of banter about him, a very warm character, but he could also shout. And I think Cunha'd very, very respected. Cunha can speak Portuguese, French, English, and Spanish, and a bit of German too, so that's perfect. True. Mina also brings a lot of personality to the locker room, even though during the loss of his father. True as well. That's another shout that I think I was always thinking Lamina, and it's not even close. But the more I think about it, do we want a captain that's a little bit younger, that can stay at Wolves a lot longer and develop as a captain, or do we want sort of someone older with more experience but isn't going to be a captain as long? It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. Lodi is saying thanks to Ben. Joe Hodge. Dexter Lambakista. Oh yeah, so a lot of these players are already come back, haven't they? So Joe Hodge, Dexter Lambakista, linked to Schmeichel. So everything about Schmeichel at the moment, everything I'm hearing, it's very much pinch of salt, basically. I haven't heard any strong links to Schmeichel. I know that obviously Wolves toyed with the idea, but it would be very, very surprising if Schmeichel came in. There's not been an offer yet for Neto yet. No offers yet. Do you think rumours of going to a back four have any likelihood of happening? More than likelihood, from what I've heard. The training, from what I've been told, I can't say too much, but it's looking very much like they are going into the realms of a back four. Can't say too much, but yeah, it's very, 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 very likely that we see, at least in pre-season, some formations, including the back four. It'll be cheap though. Yeah. How is our new captain? We don't know who he is yet. Yeah, Nacho's on a free. Yeah, I wouldn't be. The thing about Iheanacho is, I feel like he had some fantastic games, didn't he, for Leicester? But I don't know if he wants more a team like a championship team in which he's going to play every minute, or he just wants to sit on the bench for the Premier League, which is what he'd do for Wolves. So I don't think Wolves are of interest in him just because I think that he really wants minutes, and I don't think he'd get that under Wolves. Uh, would only sign Neto on a 30 million option, 50 million if they plays 30 million. But yeah, so like some like extra bits added to a contract for Neto would probably be something that they look at. Maybe even like a player swap. If you look at the teams that are interested at the moment, if we went to Arsenal, for example, there are a load of players that I'd have from Arsenal. So if we're looking at player swaps, and then you're looking at the teams that are we actually linked to for Neto, makes your head spin thinking about those possibilities. Tranmere's being tracked for a loan by Blackburn. Yes, Stu, they are, but from what I've been told, in terms of Fraser and Chirome, Gary likes Chirome a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chirome stays next season if we don't get another striker in, which I don't think we're in any rush to do now we've got our mainstay. I would like to sell Neto to Arsenal. 30 million plus Emmy Smith Rowe. Yes. Thoughts on Chiquinho? Thoughts on Chiquinho? Oh my god, mate. I have always liked Chiquinho. Always liked Chiquinho. I remember seeing him for the first time. Always thought he was fantastic. Really, really disappointed when he got his injury in pre-season. And then when he got some minutes in the Premier League, I actually thought he got about really well. It reminded me a little bit of Adamo in terms of his strength on the ball, but it seemed to have a bit of a brain to go with it. Seemed to hook up really well with players going forward. I actually think that Chiquinho is definitely someone to look at when you're thinking about resting Neto when you're trying to build up his match fitness, like I was talking about earlier. So yeah. Resigned to Neto leaving, but not a done deal by any stretch. Cannot let Riot Run go. Want to see Mascara and Chiquinho back in the fold. Yeah, Paul, absolutely, completely understand all of those things. Hope we hold on to Hoover and Chiquinho. I know that Hoover's obviously going to travel with Wolves. I've never seen anything in Keanu Hoover for me to say that he should be playing for Wolverhampton Wanderers. His attitude's not great, and I mean, he did okay when he was on loan, but he just seems to me like you need a player to develop and then show you why they deserve to be in Wolves. And for me, I've not seen that in Hoover. For Kundal, though, I feel like Kundal and Hodge, if you talk about both of them, are were very quite similar style of players, weren't they? Sort of filled in the roles every now and then and looked very strong at certain periods, but never really warmed to Premier League life. And I look at him in the same sort of light as I look at Doyle. I look at Doyle and go, okay, you can sell that. It's not going to take many seasons for this player to just absolutely boss the Premier League. But then you look at Hodge and you look at Kundal and you think, I don't know. I'm very, very on the fence with both of those players. So interesting that you guys are talking about those guys, and I don't really blame you because I think that there are some players out there that could fill the void for Wolves in one way or another. I completely agree with you, Dan. Huber was just Liverpool's way of getting Jota on the cheap. 100,000%, mate. 100,000%. They knew that they were getting rid of a bit of a bad apple, and they just wanted to sweeten the pot a little bit so that so that Jota um, was a little bit of a a sweeter deal for them or for us as well. And to me, it's kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, to be honest. Every time I think about dealing with Liverpool now, I'm like, do we want to though? Do we want to? Because are we going to get all the money, and are they going to give us some shitty player in return? So yeah, I agree with you, mate. Great shout, Steve. He's a player that will be an interesting player to keep a tab on. Yeah, excited to see him in the first team action. If you're talking about Keanu Hoover, who are you talking about? Oh shit! I've just got it. Enzo Gonzalez. Yes, that is a player that I want to talk about actually. So Enzo Gonzalez. So this kid comes in. I watch him in the under-21s, and I'm thinking, right, okay, I can see why we're looking at this player, but he's going to take a long time to get into the first team. Then all the injuries happen, and then we have a few games in which he's on the bench and he doesn't make any appearance whatsoever, but he's training with the first team squad. Okay? Then, the last 2 games, he makes an appearance in both, and in particular, the Palace game, right at the end, I saw a player in him. I did. There was a little bit about him that reminded me a little bit of when Podence was at his peak at Wolves, where like he looked very good on the ball, looked like he'd be an absolute bastard to tackle. A lot of energy. So I'm excited to see him in pre-season. Yeah, I think he's going to be one of those players that surprises a lot of people. I know that he had a very, very good game for his country as well. And people were saying, you know, he had a really good some really good minutes. So yeah, man, I think you're right about Enzo Gonzalez. I'm glad you guys brought him up because I think that's definitely a good shout. Bren says, what do you think will happen with Podence and Guedes? So Guedes, unfortunately, is a bit of a conundrum because I think that where he is now, I think they want him, but they're never going to pay the money that we paid for him. It's very much another Fabio Silva job where we're just going to have to cut our losses because there's no way in hell he wants to play for Wolverhampton. So we're just going to have to cut our losses, sell him somehow. Probably going to have to put him on another loan because I don't think anyone's going to buy him outright until he starts really pulling up trees, and I don't really think he has. And then when it comes to Podence, Olympiacos are very, very keen on signing him again, but Wolves will have to take a massive cut again. Well, not a massive cut, but at least a decent chunk, because it seems to me like he isn't he's not going to come back to Wolves, despite everyone thinking that, oh, he might be able to talk to Gary O'Neill and blah, blah, blah. No, he's not. He doesn't want to, mate. He's done. I do think though it's very interesting. I'm gonna say this now. It's very interesting. A bit of a hot take, very hot take. But his shirt, or at least his thing, as in like his like little space, has been spotted at Compton in the training pitches. So does that mean he's going to come back? They're going to assess him and then he's going to leave again? Or does that mean he's going to come back, they're going to assess him, and then Gary O'Neill's going to put his arm around him and go, look, I know you've had some shit here in the past. I know you've not wanted to be here, but I'll tell you what, this is how it's going to run. You're going to do what you normally do, but now we've got someone to really aim at in Jürgen Strand-Larsen. We've got players that are willing to run and get us up the pitch more. So I don't know. It's interesting. Both of those players won't, for me, this is my opinion. Don't shoot the messenger, but I don't think they're going to be in Wolves shirts ever again, in my opinion. I'd love to sell them, but I just don't see us getting any money, getting any decent money back for them. To be honest, I don't think Olympiacos want to spend any money at all, and kind of leaves us in some shit. I do know as well that Nottingham Forest had links with Olympiacos, and they were sort of talking around the idea of Podence, but they can't afford him either with all the PSR stuff going on at the moment. So that ain't happening. He ain't going anywhere. He's going to be very much a pain in the arse for as long as he's still a Wolves player. Yeah, Dragos, I agree, mate. I agree. It is a very chill live stream. And sometimes that's what's needed, especially after watching England behind a sofa shitting your pants. So, very much needed. Silver needs to be canned ASAP. Agree. Close your ears. Close your ears. It's all right. All his hair's covering his ears. He can't hear anyway. He's got to go, isn't he? He's got to go. He's got to go. He's got to go. The Wolves recoup money on opponents through the loan deal, so wouldn't be shocked a lower fee was agreed for a permanent sale. I just don't think Olympiacos want to spend any money, mate, to be honest. So, yeah. Thoughts on Luke Cundle? Always liked Luke Cundle. Always liked him. Nice guy. Filled in some times when Moutinho's been injured and everything and looked pretty good on the ball. But like I said earlier about him and Hodge, I put them both in the same sort of category of not ready for the Premier League and unlikely to get the minutes to be able to be ready for the Premier League. I honestly think Championship football is just for them a good thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just get a player that's not quite good enough for the Premier League, but he's a very good Championship player. Do you like Alfie Pond? I do like Alfie Pond, but am I right in thinking that he's gone? Or am I thinking of a different player? I need to double check this. Exeter? Oh no, that's where he's born. Duh. He's not at Wolves anymore, is he? Alfie Pond. Sure he's not. Sure he's gone. I can't remember. I'll have to double check. Stockport County. I'll talk about Alfie Pond anyway, regardless of us keeping him or if he's coming back or not, or if we've sold him. I can't even remember, honestly. I think he's been released, but I always liked Alfie Pond. I thought he was a good captain. For an under 21 player, I thought he actually was probably one of those players that I looked at thinking, all right, so you've got him and you've got Chihuahua, Tawanda Chihuahua, and you looked at both of those players and going, okay, fair play, they're probably next for the first 11. And then I think we released him, and I was thinking, is that a bad one? I don't know. Might bite us in the arse, that one, I think. He's a decent centre back. Kundal loan. Danny Bath is training with Wolves to gain fitness. Yeah, I talked about that earlier, George. Welcome, by the way. If you're just coming in, guys, we had a talk to Ben Jacobs, but he unfortunately had to go a little bit earlier today. But so we're going to catch up with him after the transfer window closes, or at least sort of closer to that sort of day. Just because I thought that we'd be able to talk about some of the links that have been talked about with the defenders and everything, but didn't have enough time to basically get into depth with anything. But he did say that David Carmo is probably the one that we should probably be thinking about the most, but no general concrete links or anything just yet, or any talks. But yeah. But yeah, George, sorry to talk about that. Danny Bath, yeah, we were talking about earlier. Back at Wolves for a little bit to train, but all of the things about him going to Solihull Moors is bullshit. Bullshit. I think 2 or 3 players. We need a second striker, defender, maybe a goalkeeper if Sarr and Bentley goes. I don't think Sarr will go, and I don't think Dan Bentley will go, if I'm honest, just because of the fact that I do actually think he likes his leadership role at Wolves. So yeah. Are we doing Matthew? How's things, mate? Slightly off topic, but do we know if the US games are on Wolves TV? I haven't heard anything about it just yet. I assume so. Latest. Let me double check that for you guys while you're here. I don't think so. They might be. They might air on a different sort of channel because it's between a few Premier League clubs, so it might be on an American channel perhaps. But yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that. I'm not sure. Basically, I'm not going to give you a bullshit answer, but yeah. Hi Dan. Hope Yosin comes back. Have a good feeling about him. Special times are going to happen this season, Dan. Oh, Niall. Is that Neil or Niall? Neil, sorry, I couldn't read your name in my small screen. But yeah, nice. Yeah, thanks, mate. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of players that need to prove something under Gary O'Neill this season. There's a lot of players that have been on loan who've done really well that, in my opinion, should get into the team, especially now Kilman's gone. Get some minutes, see what they're about. And yeah, I'd be really, really happy to have him back, to have the players of that nature back and everything. I think it's a fantastic time for Wolves, to be fair. And what I'm really, really happy about is we've done business early. We've got the player in that we really wanted, our main target, with some bonus players as well. And we're thinking already, okay, if that player goes, we'll link to these ones, and we're not so worried. Whereas last time, that was a very different scenario, wasn't it? He's still at Wolves, Alfie Pond. So yeah, I thought, who was it that left? Young centre back. Someone left not long ago, and I was like, oh, that's a bit disappointing. But I'm glad Alfie Pond's still at Wolves because he's one all right. He's one all right. Has not left Wolves. The only one left about yeah, that's right. Yeah. What do you think be the score? France and Spain tonight, says Daniel W. Ooh, that's a good game. I'm going to be watching it. I think that's. I think Spain will win. From the first game I watched Spain, I just thought, you know what, this is a team that knows exactly what they're doing. Really confident, you know, explore the bench when needed, which is I've been watching near enough every Euro game, and the amount of managers talking about you, Southgate, as well, who just don't go through the bench enough or early enough. Oliver, who is that beautiful guy or woman? Goldie Wolves, my God, thank you so much. That would have drove me insane. Oliver Tipton is the one at left. Alfie Pond is still a Wolves player. Alfie Pond is a fantastic centre-back, I'm just saying. Especially for the under-21s. One to look at, I'm telling you. One to look at. Andrew says 1-0 to Spain. and 1-1 England win on penalties again. I really don't want... Andrew, please don't curse us like that. I can't have us go to penalties again, mate. Do you see the receding hairline? I don't need to lose any more hair, dude. The one thing I don't need is that. Don't let me do that. I can't be dealing with it. List of transfers I've listed. Shane, where are these transfers, dude? Explain. What do you mean by this? I think they moved Madison on. Don't know what his position was. Madison was one of those players as well. Wolves are really, really happy to get in, and then sort of nothing kind of came into fruition with him. But he did have an injury as well. You got to remember he had a bit of an injury. So probably one of those things that kind of knocked his confidence a little bit. But positive player. I remember when he scored against Man United and everyone was like, oh my God. Sort of bought into it. I think we all sort of sold into the young player that looked really decent, who we needed to sort of just get in just to make sure that we weren't missing out on someone. A little bit like Chelsea does. Chelsea seem to just sign a load of young players before anyone else can and then just kind of dish them off. Hi, Dan. Obviously, Hobbs said that we are going to be aiming for Europe while talking to Strand Larson. Do you think there is enough quality in our current squad to get to Europe? There is enough squad, enough. Oh my God. Let me do that again. Ready? There is enough quality in the squad to go to Europe. There we go. But, and it's a big but, once we are in Europe, it depends what Europe conversations we're having. If we're talking about Europa, yeah, why not? Why not? Look at the teams that we'll be playing. There's no one in there. You know, we were already being compared to West Ham by Ben Jacobs earlier, and West Ham have done it. So I can't see why we wouldn't do it. The only thing I do think is we are absolutely leagues away from being able to compete in a higher European competition. Sorry, that Burger King is repeating on me. I got to be honest. Thoughts on a young Leipzig centre-back, Eric Schun? Saw a few links today. Eric Schun. Let me see if this jogs my memory. Eric Schun? Are you taking the piss? Are you being serious? I can't. I'm never too cautious about saying stuff like that on here. Like someone will be like, "Oh, have you heard of Bend Over?" Oh, mate, he's a cracking player. He is. Yeah, fucking knew it. Eric Shun, bastard. Shut your fucking mouth. Get out of here, bitch. Get out of here. Get out of this chat, you bastard. Ah, oh, fuck me. Don't clip that. I fucking Googled it as well. Mate, I've been at work all fucking day and you're doing this shit to me now. Come on, man. You son of a bitch. We're not signing actors. Well, you never know. Oh, you fuck. I bet you're talking on Facebook, aren't you? You son of a bitch. What came up when you searched it? Well, just, you know. Just fucking what you'd expect. Oh, fucking hell, here we go again. Look here, guys. Look. Calm the fuck down. Calm down. Rangers want silver fee, 15 million, but they would accept 12 million and a diving board at a push. Look, if you're going to talk about my boy like that, right, let me get him some earmuffs first. So I can tell you how I really feel about the guy. Because he's not going to be up there much longer. Everyone keeps taking the piss about the fact that I've got Fabio Silva on my one shoulder. If my missus hadn't given me that, it probably wouldn't be up there anymore. But you know what makes... I've done this before, but you know what adds insult to injury? I'm just gonna have to show you now because I'm thinking about it too much. I can't show you. I can't show you anymore. I can't show you anymore because I've got my bloody teleprompter on. I've got another one up there basically, which I can't show you, but the players on this one, Vitinha, gone. Connor Cody, gone. And Marcel, gone. Basically, I'm not putting anyone else up on that fucking wall because all that's going to happen is they're going to go and I can't cope. So I'm not risking it. That's why he's there still. Because I'm hoping them three have gone. Now he's going to go. Take your earphones off. We love you, really. Don't. I think we're going to have to go, aren't we? Because it's just getting a little bit dodgy now, innit? I'm literally looking at all of these and thinking, you know what? Sod the lot here. Yeah, my William Jose's one's there as well somewhere. Just off the camera. Fucking wall of shame. On a reel though, who's worse? And I know the answer to this question, but I'm curious what you're thinking. Who is worse, Fabio Silva or William Jose? Now think about what you think. Think about what you're saying. The thing is, it doesn't matter who you answer to that question. It doesn't matter because they're both shite. Matt, I'm not clicking on any of your shit. Playing a game of shit top trumps here, Dan. I'll tell you what, a shit game of top trumps with Wolves players would be a bloody great show. I'd love that. Because there's so many. There's so many. Like, I was thinking about the other day. Remember Jesus Vallejo? Do you remember him? He still plays for Real Madrid. I've never known a player that could play for Real Madrid but wouldn't even get into the Wolves team now. Tough one to say, William Jose, due to being older. Yeah. Right, I'm going to get off, guys, because he's approaching that time again. Euros 2024. Now, while I'm on the subject of Euros 2024, tomorrow England play the Netherlands, and I will be doing a live watch along for that. And I'm just saying now, Southgate, please, for the love of God, have some bollocks and just go at him. I'd rather us just go out than have to witness another scrape the barrel to get a result and then just go to penalties. I just can't be fucking arsed, man. I really can't. I'm too scared to click on any of your comments now. Can you put Silva a bit more central? Then maybe we can get rid of him. Silva is better than Jose by a whisker. You know what? He's staying there. You know why he's staying there? He's staying there because at the moment, he's still in the club. He's still at the club. And when he leaves, I'll take it down. It'll be a really sad day. Because I remember when we signed that kid, I remember being in my kitchen, looking down 30 million for a kid. I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to be awesome. Went onto my FM. Fabio Silva. What is this guy? What is this guy? I'm going to buy him. I had a Kidderminster Harriers save. And I was like, I need a number 9. How much is he worth? All right, fair. Let's have a look. Let's have a go. He was cracking for Kidderminster Harriers. He was my best player. And then he signs for Wolves. And then the rest is history. Andrew said, start Cole Palmer, mate. Don't talk about what Gareth Southgate is going to do under this England side because it will just stress you out. It will just annoy you and will leave you with less hair than myself. So just don't even bother. Play the game, pin the tail on the donkey. And what player is the tail going on? Den Donkey. Southgate is annoying. Thumbs up, friend pose. No, he's going like this. Because he's number 1. He's number 1. If 10's the best, out of the worst strikers that Wolves have ever had, if 10 is the best and 1 is the worst, then that pose is correct. Do you know what I'm saying? Or maybe he's saying, I scored 1 goal in 1 season and then I scored another goal in pre-season. And that's what he's doing. Looks a bit like he's flipping me off. It does look a bit like that, actually. I might keep it for that. I might actually superimpose him doing that because that's great. I love that. Right, I'm off. I hope you guys enjoy the Euros. I'm going to be cheering for Spain because I think Spain deserve it. Do I think out of Spain and France? Is it Spain and France? Yeah, out of Spain and France, I would rather have Spain win. In my opinion. I don't think we'll win the Euros, even if it was... It doesn't matter who wins out of those 2 games. It doesn't matter who wins out of those 2 games. England aren't beating either of them, so who gives a shit? I'd rather just Spain do it because, you know, they just look good. They look like a good team. Silver minus 10. 36 million rupees. Thank you for stream. Spain will win for us to beat in the final. Yeah. Spain will win and they'll beat us. That'll be the final. The final will be England versus Spain, and Spain will absolutely dominate us. And then Southgate will get sacked, and then we'll get someone else in, and hopefully then, we can actually use the attacking talent that we actually have instead of just wasting it all constantly. But yeah, in this stream, we had Ben for half an hour. He got his say on a few things that we were kind of umming and ahhing about. There's still some links towards some of our players, etc., etc. David Carmo is one of those to watch for a defender, but no concrete interest in him at all. Saudi interest is completely non-existent. after meeting in London. He said, what was the other thing he said? Still links obviously to Neto, still links over to 8 Noreen, still links to Joe Gomez. And he also said, I don't think he even said anything about Dan Bentley, actually, even though I don't know. But yeah, he had a few things to say and everything. We're going to speak to him again when he's got more time, and address a few more things that have happened in the window. And then we just got talking, which I think was long overdue. We haven't been able to do that for a while, so I've appreciated that. 1,400 of you guys here, by the way. What I want you to do, I'm pointing right at you. Look at you, right there. Look at you. Look at you right there, with your cup of tea and your biscuits and your jammers, whatever you're doing, even if you're on the shitter. Do me a massive favour, guys. Do me a big old favour. Like the video. Subscribe if you're on YouTube. Even if you're not on YouTube, go to our YouTube, subscribe. Facebook, like it. Share it with your mates. Instagram, do the same. All of the things, whatever you're watching this on, do the things that you would normally do in the circumstances of being on said things. And until then, I will see you tomorrow when Gareth Southgate inevitably pulls us all the way to a penalty shootout, and I'm hiding behind my chair, shitting my pants at the idea of us not getting to a final which is written in the stars. So yeah. Till then, guys. In a bit. I pressed the wrong button. In a bit.